I honestly thought moving in with Serena would be the calm part of my life. We had been together almost 2 years, the kind of relationship that looks solid from the outside. She was ambitious, charming, always 5 steps ahead. I was steady. I worked operations at a freight brokerage, paid on time, planned ahead, kept my word. When her rent-to-own townhouse came along, she framed it like our next chapter. Her credit was still shaky from a messy stretch after college, so a lot of utilities and accounts ended up under my name. She said it was temporary until things stabilized. I believed her because I wanted to believe us, so I covered the practical stuff. Electricity, gas, water, internet, streaming subscriptions, the little automatic payments that make a home feel easy. I did it without complaining because I was building something. I was the guy who could make life simpler. Then one Tuesday, she came home with a face I did not recognize. Not sad, not angry, just distant, like her mind was already somewhere else. She set her bag down slower than usual and sat at the kitchen island without taking her coat off. Serena always looked me right in the eye when she talked. That was her thing. Confidence. Control. This time, her gaze hovered around the room like she was reading a script on the walls. I asked what was wrong. She took a breath and said she needed to ask me something, and my stomach tightened before she even got to the point. It was about Cole, her ex. She said he had a rough situation and needed a place for a week, maybe 2, just until he got back on his feet. She tried to sell it like she was being kind, like it was an inconvenience but nothing more. Then she added the part that turned my brain cold. She wanted me to stay somewhere else while he was there. For a bit, she said, like she was talking about borrowing a sweater. I stared at her, waiting for her to laugh and say she was joking. She did not. I asked her if she hurt herself. I asked her why her ex needed my side of the bed and my spot on the couch. She kept her tone smooth and practical. "It is my place," she said. "My name is on the paperwork, not yours. I get to decide who stays here." That sentence hit me like a door slamming, because for 2 years I had treated that townhouse like our home. I fixed the loose cabinet hinge. I replaced the smoke detector batteries. I stocked the pantry. I paid for the warm water and the lights and the internet that made the place feel alive. But the way she said it made it clear what I was in her head. Not a partner. A convenient add-on. A wallet with legs. I felt my face go numb. She watched me like she expected me to accept it. Like she had already planned my agreement into her day. I walked to the bedroom without another word. My hands moved on autopilot, pulling a duffel from the closet, throwing in shirts, jeans, my work boots. I remember grabbing my toothbrush and thinking how ridiculous it was to pack my life because her ex needed a landing pad. She followed me to the doorway and repeated that it was only a week, and she said it with the calm certainty that made me feel like I was the unreasonable one. I left, not with a dramatic slam, not with yelling, just quiet, shaking anger and a knot in my throat. I drove to my friend Jordan's apartment because I needed someone who would say the truth out loud. When he opened the door, he took one look at me and stepped aside. I walked in, dropped the bag, and sank onto his couch. I did not even try to act normal. Jordan listened while I spilled everything. The request, the tone, the way she talked about ownership like it erased 2 years of building a life. When I finished, he leaned back, jaw tight, and said something that sliced through my confusion. If she can evict you emotionally that fast, it means she never moved you in for love. She moved you in for leverage. I asked him the question I did not want to ask. Do you think she is cheating? Jordan did not rush to comfort me. He did not lie. He just said he did not know, but he knew one thing. A woman who respects you does not replace you with her ex and call it normal. That was the moment something inside me clicked. I had spent 2 years being the reliable guy who solved problems, who absorbed stress, who paid the bills and kept peace. I was done being useful to someone who treated me like an option. I opened my banking app and looked at the list of auto payments: electricity, gas, internet, streaming services, the small monthly charges that added up to the comfort she was enjoying. I hesitated for maybe 3 seconds, not because I doubted my choice, but because I was trying to picture how far she would take this if I stayed passive. Then I started canceling, one by one. Jordan watched me and asked what I was doing. I told him I was taking my name out of a situation where my name was the only thing being valued. That night, Serena posted a photo on her story: a table set for two, candles, wine, takeout containers, 2 plates, and 2 forks, arranged neatly like a little performance. The caption said, "Perfect night with an old friend." Old friend. My chest tightened so hard it felt like it might crack. It was not just that Cole was there. It was that she was displaying it, broadcasting it, as if it was harmless and cute. I typed a comment before my pride could stop me. "Hope you two enjoy the romance my electric bill paid for." I hit send. I regretted it immediately because I do not normally do public drama. But I also felt a sharp, guilty relief, like I had finally stopped swallowing my own anger. Then my phone started buzzing. "The power is out. The Wi-Fi is down. What did you do? This is not funny." Her messages came fast, each one more furious than the last. Not a single one asked where I was or whether I was okay. Not one acknowledged that she had pushed me out. She was only furious because her comfort had consequences. Jordan poured me a drink and told me to breathe, but my body would not settle. My hands kept clenching and unclenching like they were still gripping the steering wheel. A voice message came in, and her voice sounded shaky now, the way someone sounds when their plan is unraveling. She said she needed the internet back. She said Cole had work in the morning. She said she did not deserve this. That last part almost made me laugh, because deserve had never been part of her decision when she told me to pack. The next morning, I opened my phone to a notification from a group chat I had forgotten existed. It was an old neighborhood social group, mostly used for lost packages and lawn service recommendations. I had joined when Serena moved in there and insisted it was good to know people. The messages were scrolling fast. Someone named Brianna, a woman I barely knew, posted a line that made my stomach drop. Honestly, good for him. Serena has been bragging about having 2 guys on standby. She said she will keep both until she decides who upgrades her life more. My vision narrowed like someone turned down the lights. More comments appeared. Someone mentioned Cole. Someone else mentioned another guy, Ethan, from her gym. A third person mentioned a coworker from her office, a guy named Miles who had been around her at happy hour. It was not a rumor. It was a pattern. I sat there with my phone in my hand, feeling my pulse in my throat. 2 years of memories rearranged themselves in my mind. Her sudden overtime, the way she guarded her phone, the way she would get sweet right after being cold, like she was managing a balance, the way she called me stable like it was a compliment but also a label. I drove to the townhouse after she left for work because I needed answers in the daylight. I was not going to scream. I was not going to beg. I just needed to look at her and say I knew. When she walked in that evening and saw me standing there, her face lit up for half a second, like she expected me to fold and apologize for ruining her candle night. Then she saw my expression, and her smile died. I told her I knew about the others. I told her I saw the messages. I told her I knew she had been juggling men like she was comparing products. She tried denial first, then tears, then anger. Then that familiar, calm voice that tried to reframe reality. She said I was overreacting. She said people talk. She said I was insecure. I looked at her and felt something I did not expect. Nothing. No urge to fix it. No desire to convince her to choose me. Just a clean, cold understanding that the relationship was never what I thought it was. I told her I was done. I took my remaining things that night. Not just clothes, not just toiletries. I took every small piece of myself I had placed in that home. I grabbed my spare keys. I unplugged the smart speaker I bought. I took the framed photo of us from the shelf because I did not want my face smiling in a room where I was treated like a service. She followed me to the door and said I was making a mistake. I walked out anyway. For the first time in 2 years, I chose myself with no apology. I thought that would be the end. It was not. A few days later, my bank called. They flagged a suspicious charge attempt at an energy provider. It was in my name, using my card, trying to pay a past due bill. Her bill. My chest went tight again, but this time it was not heartbreak. It was alarm, because it meant she still had my card details. It meant she was willing to use them. I checked my account and saw multiple attempts, not just for the energy company, but for a new internet setup and something labeled account activation fee. She was trying to open utilities under my identity, not to keep the lights on, to bury me in bills. I froze for about a minute, staring at my screen, feeling the ground shift under me again. Then I moved. I locked my card. I called the bank and requested a new number. I froze my credit with all 3 bureaus. I changed every password I could think of. I pulled my credit report and scanned it like my life depended on it. Because it did, I filed a police report. The officer sounded bored until I explained the pattern and the repeated attempts. Then his voice changed. He told me to document everything. Screenshots, call logs, dates, times. I started a folder on my laptop called Evidence, and I filled it like a man trying to rebuild control. Serena did not stop. She started showing up. Jordan's doorbell camera caught her standing outside his building one evening, pacing, looking up at the windows like she was trying to guess where I was. She was not alone. There was a guy with her, tall, unfamiliar, hovering behind her like muscle. Jordan texted me to stay inside. He told me not to engage. A few nights later, I went out to my car and found the driver's side scratched from front to back. Deep lines carved into the paint, like someone wanted the damage to be personal. My side mirror was cracked, hanging at an angle. My throat went dry. Then my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It claimed to be Cole. It said I needed to pay to restore the utilities or things would get worse. I stared at the screen, jaw clenched, because now it was not just emotional chaos. It was intimidation. I saved the message. I took photos of the car. I filed another report. The following week, my email filled with something that looked official, a demand letter from an attorney. It accused me of causing emotional distress and demanded $5,000 for damages due to the inconvenience of losing utilities. I read it 3 times because it was so absurd my brain kept rejecting it. She was trying to sue me for not continuing to fund her life. Then the neighborhood group lit up with a post about me. It painted me like a predator, like I moved in, tricked her, then retaliated by cutting off utilities. People I had never met commented under it. Some defended her. Some piled on. Some asked for my photo. Serena had turned a private mess into a public campaign. I wanted to jump into the thread and defend myself, to post screenshots and prove everything. Jordan told me not to. He said public fights are what people like her thrive on. He said the place to fight is where evidence matters. So I stayed quiet publicly and got loud privately. I hired a lawyer, not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted protection. My lawyer read the demand letter and laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was flimsy. He told me it looked like a scare tactic. Then he got serious and said the identity attempts and the intimidation were the real danger. He told me to request a protective order if she continued. Within days, she did. She emailed my work address. She called the front desk at my office. She showed up in the parking lot one afternoon, sitting in her car like she was waiting for me to step outside. My coworkers started asking questions. My manager pulled me aside, concerned. I felt humiliation and rage tangle in my chest, but I forced my voice to stay steady as I explained that I had a personal situation and it was being handled legally. That night, I sat in Jordan's living room, staring at the wall, feeling exhausted in a way sleep could not fix. I kept replaying the early days with Serena, the sweet messages, the future plans, the way she used to touch my arm in public like she was proud of me. I wondered how many people she had practiced that on. I wondered how much of it was real. Then I realized something I wish I had understood sooner. It did not matter, because real love does not require you to fund it, prove it, and tolerate disrespect to keep it. Real love does not threaten your identity when you leave. A week later, I got the call that ended it. A police officer told me they were near my car and asked me to come down. I drove there with my heart pounding, expecting more damage. Instead, I found Serena sitting on the curb in handcuffs. Her hair was messy, her eyes were wild. She looked smaller than she ever had, not because she was fragile, but because her mask was gone. The officer explained that someone had called in suspicious activity. Serena had been caught trying to open my car door with a bent metal tool. When they searched her bag, they found gloves, a small can of spray paint, a tube of superglue, and a box cutter. Tools, a plan, not just to scare me, but to destroy something, to leave a mark. The officer asked if it was my vehicle. I confirmed. Serena looked up at me and tried to speak like we were still in a conversation, like she could still negotiate. But I did not step closer. I did not soften. I just watched as they put her in the cruiser. The officer told me quietly that this was not her first incident that week. She had been cited for trespassing at Jordan's building. She had been warned for harassment at my office. She had escalated because she could not accept losing control. Standing there under the harsh parking lot lights, I felt relief, but it was not the kind you celebrate. It was the kind you feel after surviving a storm, when your body is still shaking and you are realizing you are still alive. That night, I went home to my own small apartment. It was not fancy. It did not have candles or staged dinners, but it was mine. My name on the lease, my keys, my peace. I sat at the kitchen table and let myself feel the weight of what happened. I had ignored small red flags because the relationship looked good on paper. I had accepted being called stable like it was love. I had paid for comfort and called it commitment. And when she showed me who I was to her, I finally believed her. The hardest part was admitting I could not outlove someone who viewed love as a transaction. But the best part was realizing I did not have to. If you are listening to this and you recognize yourself in it, the guy who keeps paying, fixing, forgiving, hoping that effort will turn into respect, hear me clearly. Respect is not something you earn by sacrificing more. It is something you require by walking away when it is missing. If you want more real stories like this, hit like and subscribe. It helps the channel reach people who need the reminder that self-respect is not cold, it is survival. After that arrest, my world did not magically reset. There were still paperwork days, uncomfortable conversations, and that odd, hollow feeling that comes when your brain finally accepts that the person you loved was never the person you thought you were loving. The first thing I did was change the routine she knew. I stopped going to the same coffee shop before work. I parked in a different lot. I told my building manager to never buzz anyone up without confirming through me. I added a dash cam because the damage to my car proved how easy it was for someone to make your life smaller with one impulsive decision. My lawyer helped me file for a protective order. That process was not dramatic like movies. It was slow, clinical, and heavy. I printed screenshots of the threats. I saved the voicemail where her voice turned sharp the moment she realized I would not comply. I brought the bank statements with the attempted charges, the police report numbers, the photos of the scratches on my car. Every page felt like proof that I had been living in a story I never agreed to be part of. In the courthouse hallway, I saw her again. She wore the same confident outfit she used to wear on dates, the one that made her look like she belonged in a glossy magazine. She tried to give me a look that said we could still control the narrative together if I just cooperated. Like all of this was a misunderstanding that needed better branding, I did not look away, but I did not engage. I kept my eyes on the floor and my hands steady. I remembered what Jordan said, that people who feed on control cannot stand silence because silence removes their stage. When the judge asked questions, Serena tried to sound calm and wounded. She talked about how I abandoned her. She talked about how the utility shutoffs traumatized her. She talked about how I was vindictive and unstable. Then my lawyer handed the judge the evidence. The threat messages, the attempted payments, the police reports showing her trespasses, the photographs of my car, the transcript from my bank call. The judge did not need to raise his voice. He just asked her why she was at my car with tools. He asked her why she contacted my workplace after being told to stop. He asked her why multiple new accounts had been attempted under my name. Serena stumbled over her answers. She tried to pivot into tears. She tried to blame me for making her desperate. She tried to frame herself as the victim of a man who refused to keep supporting her. The judge granted the order. It was a boundary on paper that said she could not come near me, contact me, or interfere with my life. When I stepped outside afterward, the air felt different. Not lighter exactly, but cleaner. Like I had finally opened a window in a room that had been slowly filling with smoke. A month passed. Then another. The messages stopped. The neighborhood posts faded into the endless scroll of other dramas. People moved on. Some people never apologized for believing her. I did not expect them to. I learned that public opinion is cheap and temporary, and it is not where you build your self-worth. I kept rebuilding in small ways. I opened a new checking account and moved my direct deposit. I checked my credit weekly for a while. I paid extra attention to my mail. I canceled every subscription we had shared. Not out of spite, but out of clarity. If I was going to start over, I was going to start clean. The strangest part was the quiet. For a long time, I'd gotten used to living in her emotional weather. Sunny when she wanted something. Stormy when she needed leverage. Calm when she was out getting her next supply of attention. I had adapted to it without realizing it. I had become a man who watched for shifts, who anticipated moods, who thought peace meant keeping someone else satisfied. With her gone, my body did not know what to do with stillness. I would wake up and feel a jolt of anxiety like I forgot something important. I would check my phone instinctively, expecting an accusation or a demand. I would stand in the grocery aisle and catch myself choosing items she liked, then remember I did not need to manage her preferences anymore. That is what people do not tell you about relationships like that. You do not just leave the person, you leave the version of yourself you became to survive them. One evening, Jordan and I went for a drive, just to clear my head. We ended up parked on a quiet street watching a game on his phone, windows cracked, cold air sneaking in. He asked me what the earliest red flag was, the one I ignored. I did not answer immediately because there were so many little moments that seemed harmless at the time. The first was how she talked about people. Every story had winners and losers. Every conflict had someone she outsmarted. Every ex was described as a lesson, never a person. She rarely owned mistakes, she narrated around them. The second was the way she treated generosity. When I paid for things early on, she called me a real man. When I hesitated later, she called me controlling. The meaning changed depending on what she wanted. The third was how fast she moved the relationship forward. Moving in sounded romantic. Combining finances sounded responsible. Putting utilities under my name sounded temporary. Every step came with a compliment that made me feel needed. Needed is a dangerous word when someone uses it like a hook. Jordan nodded like he'd been waiting for that. He told me I was not foolish for loving her. He told me the mistake was not caring. The mistake was confusing effort with intimacy and assuming that paying the cost proved the value. He said something else that stayed with me. A healthy partner does not keep you on probation. They do not test how much you will tolerate. They do not use your stability like a backup plan. That night, I wrote a list on my phone. Not a list of what she did, a list of what I would never accept again. I would not be with someone who treats boundaries like personal attacks. I would not tie my financial identity to someone who cannot be trusted with basic respect. I would not move in with someone who says it is our home, but reminds me it is hers the moment she wants power. I would not stay in a relationship where love is always conditional. It sounds simple, but writing it down felt like building a fence around my peace. A few weeks later, I ran into Serena by accident. She was across a parking lot outside a grocery store. Our eyes met for a second, and I felt that old jolt of adrenaline. Then she turned away and walked in the other direction. I realized something in that moment. I was not afraid of her anymore. I was afraid of the chaos I used to allow, and that meant the real work was mine, not hers. Because people like her exist everywhere, in different forms, with different names. The only protection you control is your ability to recognize patterns and leave early. It took time, but the nightmare stopped being the center of my life. It became a chapter. Not because she suddenly became reasonable, but because I stopped giving her access to my attention, my money, my identity, and my space. I also stopped trying to explain her to myself. I used to sit in bed replaying conversations, searching for the moment where I could have said a different sentence and changed the outcome. I thought if I understood her motivation, the pain would make sense. But pain does not need to make sense to deserve an ending. The truth is, she asked me to move out so her ex could move in because she believed she could. She believed I would comply. She believed my kindness would keep me quiet. The day I stopped cooperating, her mask cracked, and she revealed what she really valued: control, convenience, and the thrill of having options. Walking away did not make me cold. It made me honest. And if you are still in a situation where someone keeps reminding you that you are replaceable, listen to that message. They are not joking. They are training you to accept less. Do not wait for a lawsuit, a keyed car, or a bank alert to take your life back. The first sign is usually smaller. A request that disrespects you, a boundary they call selfish, a decision they make without you, then blame you for reacting. Choose yourself the first time, not the last time. If you want more real relationship stories where self-respect wins, hit like and subscribe.